All angles on eNCA. In case you're just joining us, these are the stories we are tracking for you at this hour. Parliament has approved postponing the medium-term budget policy statement. This as President Cyril Ramaphosa will reveal his long-awaited economic recovery plan in the next hour and a half. And the Freedom Front Plus calls for calm ahead of tomorrow's planned protests in the Free State town of Senekal. Sticking with our focus on the build-up to the President unveiling the economic recovery plan, many sectors of the economy have started operating again when the country moved to level 1 of the lockdown. eNCA's Mawande Kheswa is tracking how the imports and exports industries are picking up the pieces. He joins us now from the harbour in Durban for that conversation. So no better barometer, Mawande, in terms of what's happening with our economy perhaps than what you see the movement there at the harbour, and one would hope that we are seeing more ships leaving the country with goods manufactured in this country, creating jobs and bringing in earnings. But what is the sense there from authorities? Is that necessarily the case?
Well, there's no better spot to be in than at the Durban port, which is the largest and busiest port in sub-Saharan Africa. And the business that takes place here gives us an indication of how everything else around the country is going to be. If I may say so myself, the Durban port coughs and the rest of the country catches the flu. I'm going to speak to the General Manager, Mutlohi, just to give us an outlook. So the numbers we have say that between June and July, trade, imports and exports here increased by 12%. Could you take us through at level 5 what the situation was like? Moving up to now, we are in level 1. Have shipments started to pick up? How are imports and exports looking?
In fact, when we look at level 5, when we started being hit by COVID, we dropped by 25% in terms of the tonnage that we're handling as a port. But as we're progressing through various levels, at level 4, we were able to claw back 20% of that decline. Then in level 3, we again made some improvement. Interestingly, there are cargo categories that really never felt the impact of COVID in a negative way. Those are agricultural products. We had a good run when it comes to maize and wheat in the port of Durban. We had a good run for citrus fruits. Of course, it's obvious that the demand elsewhere around the world with the COVID pandemic was high for fruits that comes through the port. We also had an awesome season, if you're looking at the first 5 months of this financial year, on chrome ore, iron ore, and manganese. And all those cargoes that came through this port really had a lot to do with the numbers that you are citing. However, there were 2 cargo categories that really felt the impact of COVID. Those are auto sector and containers, and those 2 are interrelated. If you're looking at the manufacturing, for example, of a vehicle, it needs parts that will be imported. And if there's no demand for new cars, you don't have a need for those parts to come in. And those parts are coming in containers. One hopes that as the tourism sector gets opened up, there will be an increased demand in terms of the hired cars. And when that happens, we expect that the manufacturing of those other cars that are coming into servicing the hired market would generate container cargo that will be bringing components for the assembly of those vehicles. And this is how the relationship has been. And we have, however, noted that if you compare this year, we're supposed to be in peak now for Christmas, but comparing it to last year, we still are not feeling the impact of peak. The economy is still feeling the knock of COVID, in as much as we have worked with industry players and plan around how can we optimize given the current constraints. And these volumes that are exceeding the targets that I spoke to have been handled well, because we really worked with industry to say how do we make South Africa capitalize on areas where there was huge demand. We also have seen a decline when it comes to petroleum product. Again, it is related to the demand for cars to be used up and down. That sector has taken a knock, but we're seeing slight improvement. If you're comparing it to level 5, there's always been an improvement month on month, but we know we're close to where we're supposed to be had we not had COVID.
Now, you've said some good news as far as exports are concerned with those industries. Looking at now up until December, the trajectory, would you say we will be experiencing more exports from the country, because those do give us an indication of more production as far as our businesses and companies are concerned, considering that GDP in the second quarter fell by about 51%?
Look, I think I'm not thinking that we're going to have a huge increase as we had in the first 5 months. Reason being that some of the products that I've mentioned here are seasonal. Agricultural product, we are approaching the end of the season. Some of those, like citrus, that has passed, maize has passed. There's few areas where we still have some cargo coming through, but we are not expecting to be getting a lot. But one is optimistic that with the announcement this afternoon, we are going to see an improvement coming into the economy. And we've used this opportunity really to gear ourselves so that we're ready to support the upsurge if there's any that will be coming in. But as things stand right now, we're keeping our fingers on the pulse, if you like, where we're talking to industry to say where are the growth points, what we need to support them. And we're working with them and taking it as it comes. We have a capacity to carry us through.
In closing, from some of the discussions and conversations you've had with the various companies, which areas would you say have been identified where they can be strengthened to ensure that more business is done?
Look, for me, I think if there could be something that assists the manufacturing sector, that is the biggest contributor in the economy. And also from the cargo throughput, containers are a big indicator of the performance of manufacturing sector. And if we were to get that, we'll get going. And we're excited about concessions made in various sectors such as tourism. We hope that that is going to impact what we do here well in the port. And also, if our country has got opportunities to export more of the minerals as it is trading with international partners, we're standing ready to assist in that regard.
Thank you very much there for your time. We have been speaking to the Durban Port's General Manager, Mawande Kheswa.
Yeah, absolutely. Mawande, that for me is really hitting the nail on the head in as far as the analysis of the economy there. I mean, what insights Mawande just gave there, particularly that first response at the start of your interview there. I think he basically covered almost everything in terms of giving us a full sense from the coalface of what's happening in our economy. Thank you.